It just looked like that picture.
Now, what year are you talking about, more or less? About what year?
I can't remember the year.
Was it before 1920?
Yeah, it's 1920.
It was before
I was
1920?
born 1909.
Yeah, so it was before 1920 that you rode the train.
I was about 8 and 10 years old.
So it was around 1917, 1918. Did you ever see the trains where they haul people on special excursions, or did you just ride a train when they had like a passenger car and a caboose, the regular train?
But now that picture's when they went on excursion.
That was kind of a holiday when they'd have that excursion.
That's a big event, wasn't it?
Yeah, a lot of people's out looking, you know, and watching them.
That's 1902. I had one of them, Porter.
Huh?
I had a copy of that picture. I
You-
told Jim I had.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the locomotive looked like when you rode the train?
No, I don't remember that.
Uh-huh.
Did it use coal or wood for fuel?
I don't remember.
Don't remember what it burned?
Seemed like they used wood.
I believe they used some of both.
Okay.
Probably did.
If they'd used coal, there'd have been an awful lot of black smoke from it back then, them days.
Mm-hmm.
So evidently they must have used some wood, a lot of wood with it.
So you don't remember having seen too much smoke?
Not a lot
on
of
it?
smoke from it, you know.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever remember seeing the train wreck?
I never did, no.
What was it? Somebody was telling about somebody greasing the tracks or something.
Oh, yeah. You're right. All the kids are guilty
That
of
was
that.
some of the Hendricks, you know, after they moved over there.
But there wasn't no train over there then.
Huh?
When Hendricks moved over
No,
there,
the
there
train
wasn't
wasn't
no
over there.
What year are you talking about when the train wasn't there now?
Was it 1920?
20 or 21, somewhere along
There
there.
was no little train running to Kibler by that time, right?
Don't think so. It's in them papers there when they done away with it.
What was it you were asked for? It was a specific.
Yeah, I was asking him a while ago how old he was when he rode the train from the store building, you say, up to the water tank.
Yeah.
How old you were?
I'm going to say I was about close to 5 years old.
So it was about 1918, 1919.
Yeah. Well, the picture that you had here a while back, Caster, made on the bridge over there, 19 and 19.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've got one of them. I don't know what. Well, you haven't got another one, have you?
No, I give you the one I had.
It showed us in the Mount Airy paper, all of us were standing on the bridge. And the 19 and 19 was when it was finished. But I remember on before that, I remember when that bridge, when they was pouring the concrete on top, you know, my brother Mac and Omi King, and I forgot who else was pouring the concrete. I guess I would have probably been at that time 3 years old, maybe a little older.
How old was you when you fell off down there before the bridge was built and cut your head?
That was when I was about 4 years old.
Sisters are rough, aren't they?
I still
You don't
got,
have one, do you, Tom?
No, I
I
don't.
still got proof of that.
You ought to hear my youngest when they get together now. They'll tell all this stuff they done.
Yeah,
but I
but you
didn't know about.
then.
I
Yeah.
didn't know about.
No, that's before the bridge was ever built. And our
So-
daddy would go to Mount Airy and it'd take him all day to get a load of stuff to put in the store. And we'd hear him coming over there on the hill and the wagon, you know, and here we'd go. Meet him.
So there's a picture sometime in the Mount Airy paper about 1919 of you on that bridge. Is that what?
Yeah, it was in 19 and 19.
Write that down, Kenny.
But anyway, we'd go on a run, it'd be dark, and Pete and me and my other sister and
Let me ask y'all where the store is right now.
That's not the store.
Yeah, but where it is right now, where did those railroad tracks come compared to where the store is right now?
Oh, from the store now?
Yeah,
Well, it's down here to my mailbox.
down your mailbox.
That's where it crossed.
It crossed in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what was they said there's a fertilizer
Well,
house.
right there in the corner where you turn down to his house,
Mm-hmm.
be on the left of the
Tell them about the
main
grave.
highway here. It was a fertilizer house.
Mm-hmm.
They'd bring fertilizer up there, and Rafe Clement, old man Rafe Clement, was the agent for it. Well, my daddy would go over there and get fertilizer, and we'd go with him in the wagon, and people around and buy the fertilizer. And beside of that building, there was a little black boy bed,
Cedar tree wasn't there.
and there was a cedar tree beside the building. And it was there for years, and then there was 2 or 3 men got the job cutting cedars. My daddy let them cut that down, but that little colored boy was buried there.
While they was cutting them cedars, the orchard people claimed that
They're damaging the apples.
yeah, they put rust on the apples.
Oh, gosh.
They went around through the country and cut out all the
Yeah,
cedar
they cut
trees.
out
So,
all the cedar trees.
The railroad ran from right there about where your driveway is between your house now and the river and down to Clark's
No,
Creek? Or
no.
did it come,
No,
it do some turn
it
or
was
something?
above his
I'd like to
house.
show you where it went.
It was above his house.
Above his house.
Between your house and the store
Yeah,
Yeah.
now. The store now.
Yeah.
about halfway.
About halfway.
Close to it.
Out there, and
Okay.
it went out and above his stable line, and
Mhm.
on out the pond.
And then down toward Clark's Creek.
Oh,
Went
Right
on
on
up
up.
there at the end of that bottom, up there where Joe Slate lives, back along up and behind that.
Yeah.
It-
It's about 30 feet up on the bank.
he got a pond out there.
So it's on the high ground above Clark's Creek.
Yeah.
Going out through there.
Yeah.
But eventually, does it eventually go down to where it's about on the same level as the creek?
No,
Way on out?
not till it gets up next to Lash Lakes.
Okay.
And then there was a water tank.
Okay.
There was a water tank
Is
up
that
there.
that old tank that's set up there? Used to be some kind of old tank or something
There's a
sitting
wooden
up there.
tank.
It was
up on
wood, it's about
Well, this was
almost
metal.
large as this room.
Set up
Used to
on
be
the-
some kind of old tank
Oh.
used to
This
set up there.
branch run down and run into it.
So would that be, you know, like the Trucker Lane, the road that goes by Lee Smith's house? You know how that road comes down to the Pettigo Ridge Road? Was the water tank right about where them 2 roads come together there up at Clark's Creek? You know, you know what I'm talking about?
Bud Smith's
No,
place.
no, water tank was well on down the line here.
Water
That was
tank
way
up-
too far up.
Oh, so it's closer to your house than,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
You know where Lash Lake lives across the creek? All right. It's right there.
Okay.
His house.
About where Larry's driveway is, after you cross the bridge, if you go straight on,
To the right of his driveway.
instead of turning up to Larry's house, you'd come to about where the water tank was. down there.
Okay. And that's where there's another little stream comes in right there. And that where Rystack Creek or whatever they call it. I forget what they call it now, but isn't there a little creek
Well,
there
where
pretty
they
close?
did that pond above Lash.
Okay.
That's
okay.
the branch, we call it branch where it
Yeah.
run in.
Yeah, the map, I'm just looking at the map, and the map calls it Rye Shank Branch or something. It's got some wild name.
I never heard of that.
Yeah, it's on the map here. I never heard of it either.
Is that the water tank you were talking about you hoboed the train
Yeah.
to?
It
Okay.
was on that branch.
Okay, how long a ride was that?
Oh. It wasn't far.
About 3/4 of a mile.
Yeah.
A
It's
little
not
more.
far. It ain't far.
By the time you got interested, it's time to get off, huh?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't nothing just chugging along.
Yeah. Did you ever see him haul anything other than lumber in large amounts of any other type merchandise?
It seems to me like I saw him hauling some tan bark one time.
They hauled anything anybody wanted them to.
I guess it would.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a letter over there that Tom Barnett, when he was discharged from the Army and from General Pershing, and I was reading that, me and Tom was in the Ruling Club together. Up there. I was in it for 53 years, still in it. Well, Tom would talk to me about the war, you know, World War One, that he was in it. Well, one time he told me, he said, there's one thing I remember that there's not many people ever heard about. Says we drove a herd of turkeys to Mount Airy.
Yeah. I've seen pictures of it.
Huh?
I've seen pictures of that.
I said, well, how you mean? He said, well, we was all boys, and said one or two behind, one or two here, and a leader in front, and says we kept them herded in between us to Mount Airy. Now that was what he told.
That might have something about the railroad on it.
So you saw the pictures of the turkeys?
Yeah, I've seen pictures of the turkey drive. Yeah, I've seen a couple.
Oh, it wasn't this one.
I don't think it was just a turkey drive. I don't
Yeah.
know which one it was. But I've seen
I just
pictures.
thought that might be interesting to do.
Yeah, I thought didn't they bring them? Somebody told me they used to bring them down from the mountain too, like bring
Well,
them down.
I think that's where they got all these turkeys, or some people who lived around had so many
Yeah,
turkeys.
like bring them down Squirrel Spur or some crazy
Yeah.
thing like
Jar
that.
Gap.
Yeah.
Jar Gap.
That's like a lot of people was tight. They used to stop over there at Dad's and get water all the time on the mountain and on above there, you know, round over close to Meadows of Dan and up in there. Well, they'd stop over there. There, some of them would stay all night. We had one time we'd have maybe a jeweler that would stop. Was working on watches, and he had his little suitcase, you know, and he'd spend the night.
Well, didn't they say the campground used to be there in front of the house?
And
People to
next
spend the
morning
night there.
he'd leave a quarter at the plate, you know, and after spending the night. Well, a few days later we may have that was a jeweler, what have you, one with glasses, worked on your glasses, you know, with a little suitcase, traveling.
Well, one time
They
too,
call them traveling salesmen, I
Mhm.
think.
there was across the road from the old house down there. The road was close to the house then where we was raised. And they camped across the road. Matilda Banks, his wife, would spend the night. She'd come to the house and stay, and the men would stay out there. Well, they was hauling lumber. That's way before the bridge was built. And I forgot who it was, had a team of horses, and one of them was balky. Matilda Banks told him to tie a rope around his tongue, and it would pull. Then they tied the rope around it, pulled his tongue out. And old man Allen Johnson took the horse and fed it soft food. Matilda Banks stopped, and they stayed all night. His wife was at the house. Porter looked up at him and says, "You the man that pulled the horse's tongue out?" And Mr. Banks never did stay all night no more. Can you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. I remember another thing that happened over there. This guy stopped with one of the wagons, you know, a lot of the wagons had that sloping bed behind. And Pete and myself looked in there and he had, oh boy, pretty apples. He stopped and got one, you know, to drink. And we tried to get him to give us an apple. He wouldn't give us an apple.
Well, first,
Pete says, let's follow him on across the river, a creek down there. Had to cross the creek below where the bridge is now, on with the wagon, you know. And we got on the coupling pole of the wagon. If you know what the coupling pole was, it made the extension to make it long coupling. We got on that and we rode, and he couldn't see us back there, you know. Started up the hill. Pete was in front. He worked the board loose, you know. Out come the apple. Blink, 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 blink. We went about 30 feet, and we got off, and we started picking up apples, you know, filled our pockets with. By that time, he stopped. He saw what was going on. We was running back towards the creek, you know. Pete says, I guess he wished he'd give us an apple now.
Do you remember where the railroad, when it went up Clark's Creek, where it crossed over, or did it cross over the creek eventually and go to the other side of Clark's Creek somewhere, way on up?
I don't remember on up. It must have been up there around. There was a bridge. You know where the Jessup lives.
Mm-hmm.
He married,
Married Gammons, didn't he? Married,
Dexter
Dexter
Gammons'
Gammons'
girl,
girl.
I believe.
Yeah,
He's got a boy,
that's pretty far on up
Nick
there.
Allen or something. Anyway, it crossed right there, best I remember, behind that barn.
Okay.
It's there. And went straight on around there, up the hollow. Well, time it got up to the next crossing, Holly Tree Road,
Mm-hmm.
Clark's Creek wasn't much size, but when it got up there, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But didn't the track go through the bottom, the other side of Larry Slate's? Up by the mill?
Yeah, it went right through where the old sawmill and mill grinding was.
Who run the sawmill?
Buckhart was the,
It wasn't sawmill, it was where they ground meal.
well, they ground mill and they had a
Grist
sawmill
mill.
too.
Grist
This-
mill,
I
yeah,
didn't
had
know
both
they
there
had a
probably.
sawmill.
Yeah, they had a sawmill there. All they had to do
Was
was
that-
switch a belt, you
Was
know,
that Vic?
from the boiler to the engine to the switch a belt to grind with. And
Well, what was Vic Buckhart's husband's name? Was it John?
John Buckhart.
John, Jesse's daddy.
Berthart, B-E-R-K-H-A-R-D-T, right?
H-A-R-T, I reckon that's the way they are.
Ran a grist mill there near the railroad.
Mhm.
Well, you're talking about bridges. What kind of bridges were they? Did they put timber in the creeks or the rivers and just put
Yeah.
the rail on top of it, or did they build concrete piers?
no,
or
they most of them just had, they set
Wood.
on,
wood? They
wood.
built them like in a square, and
Yeah.
they put the rail across the top, so that way when a flood hit or something, it wouldn't take them long to replace it.
that's right. They just, the bridge, best I remember, went down sitting on some kind of another log, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
a square something.
But they built like a square, and built it
Yeah.
up to the elevation they needed
Yeah.
to go across the.
And then it had cross pieces, you know,
Mhm. Okay.
Well, down past that bridge there, you used to have to ford the creek to go over there, and they had a foot log, and they had it chained to a tree, and if the rain come up a rain, and they'd wash that foot log around, and they'd go pull it back around.
Yeah.
You know, the creek would get up, and they'd go pull it. That's the only way they had to get over there. They had to ford the creek, and that's where you and Daddy had started over at Murray Marshall's one night and had the lantern, and Bud Willis got stuck over there, and Daddy helped him get out, and when he did, he ran over his lantern.
Did you ever see them load lumber on the train, or
never did.
you never did see them do that?
Uncle Mac Pettigo had a
Commissary.
way just below the railroad there above Porter's house. It was a big platform, and he had weights. It was up. I reckon to weigh cattle on. I guess they haul cattle too.
Could have.
If I'm having them weights there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he weighed most anything on them, I reckon.
No, the old Mill Pond Seal, when they built this last bridge over there, I believe it was built in '53, they tore that seal out where the framework for that pond was, you know.
Now, where's the pond located you're talking
Right
about?
below my house there, where the creek, where the bridge is.
Okay.
Right.
All that bottom was covered in water, you know. And right below my house, 20 feet from my house, they had an ice house, an ice hole, you know. It was about the size of a tobacco barn, about 18 foot square, and went down to the ground about 16 foot. And they'd haul that ice up there, and there was a ladder went down in it. You remember Cassie, the ladder going down in it?
She said she always made her scared to go in there.
Ah,
Said
I
she
didn't go
scared
in it. I lay there and looked down in it. You could see frogs down in there.
Well, did your daddy own the ice
No, our
pit, or did
granddad-
the railroad?
No, our granddad and them raised that, owned that over there.
Oh, I see.
Just said y'all used to,
Great grandfather,
yeah.
grandfather, and great
Louis
grandfather.
Pettigo.
They all lived over
you
there.
said y'all used to go down there and skate on that mill pond.
No,
Used to go
I
did
didn't.
skate on- you didn't
Older-
skate on?
No, other people
Some of them
did.
did.
Our
So-
mother
Skated
did.
on the mill
There
pond.
was a dam on Clark's Creek that backed up
Yeah.
pond into your bottom.
It covered all that bottom.
It covered all that bottom up in
Yeah.
there. When did the dam go away?
I believe it was 98. I believe it was 18 and 98. I was asking Pat McBride about it,
I can't remember it.
and I believe he told me that he was a little boy, and he come down there and said they'd heard that the dam had busted the night before, and he said we went down there. Says I was just a little boy, and I walked with my daddy, and he said it was all mud holes in it, and the fishes were flopping on, but there was holes, you know.
Well, there was a mill down there where the Pettigos had a mill, you know. And right there, on this side of the bridge there's a spring on the edge of where's that at, Porter? Right close to the road, the spring.
So the dam's about where the bridge is today?
Just above a bridge.
So I never heard that.
There was a blacksmith shop.
Up on the hill.
Yeah, right up on the hill there.
Okay.
You remember the railroad having anything in your area there where you were raised other than the water tank and the track itself? Did they have any other railroad facilities there in that area?
No.
Not as I know of.
Did they have, for instance, another track where one train could pass the other that you recall? Or just the one railroad track?
Well, now where is Meadowfield?
Bateman Strait.
Is that Bateman Strait?
Yeah, like where Bateman Strait is.
Well, didn't you have something about the post office down
I
there?
got all that
She
stuff
got
where it
all
run
the
and
information
everything.
on post offices.
Yeah. It probably got something in there about the railroad too.
So now, Porter, you would tell me you were saying about Tom Barnard and the Turkey Drive. That was after World War I, about 1918 or something.
Yeah. See, I believe it ended in 1918.
What about the hog drives they used to have too, long years ago?
Yeah, they used to have cattle drive.
They
Sheep?
drive hogs.
Well, I just think having a turkey drive, that's got to be the funniest thing I can
Looks like
imagine.
it fly. Like it fly.
I remember my grandpa selling a big bull. Wasn't a beef type bull. To Stewart. Got him,
Stewart's Meat Market.
killing abattoir this side of town, and out right about 100 yards from where the cemetery is. And Grandpa told him, he said, now I'm selling you that animal, but says you're gonna have to load him. Says I'll have nothing to do with it. So he come with his wagon, you know, where they had to haul him in, and the wagon had tires about 4 inches wide on it, and a team of horses to it, and a great big high frame on that wagon. He pulled it over there, and he had a cow in there. It was in heat. And he opened the gate, and the bull run right in. He closed the gate and drove off with it.
What about the Black Nat Smith putting the hog on the railroad track?
I believe I told that. Nat Smith, he'd sold Stewart Brothers a hog that had died, and when they went to cut it up, they found that the blood wasn't right. It just died, you know. It hadn't been killed. And they sent him word by somebody, if he didn't come and get that hog, that they's going to sue him. And he went with his one horse wagon, and he lived right there just above Theodore Gwynn's at the public church. And he went and got it, and he brought it back, and over here where Trent Cromer's got his barn, you know, all that was just a field there. He pulled it out there and pulled it off beside the railroad track. And it laid there, and it's Christmas time. These guys operating that train come along, and somebody told them about it. And I think there's a drinking, and according to what Dad told me one time, he said they got that hog up and trimmed him in the firebox, you know. And said it never did get hot till it got way on down there about the Fulton place this side of town. And said when it got there, he said everything as steam was blowing out from every place it was. And they had to break it to hold it back.
So they just about blew the boiler up on the hog.
Yeah, the grease got hot.
That grease got hot, I guess it did.
Well, you know up here where Lucy Carter's store was.
Uh-huh.
Remember where Lucy's store was?
Uh-huh.
And they said one year the thrashing machine used to go around through the neighborhood, you know. And they'd spend the night. We used to like playing the wheat. You know, they'd shock the wheat and all. And they said that one night Adam King had to spend the night there. And said he went in to go to bed and said the bed was pretty clean and white. He's going to sleep on the floor. And said Aunt Lucy said, no, said you sleep in that bed. Said there's never a black person slept in it. She kept it especially for white people. You know, they'd come down off of the mountain and have to spend the night. She kept it especially for them.
Did you read that, Tom?
Yes, ma'am.
That's,
She's got Pauline Carter's will in that envelope right there.
That's my aunt, Paulina Carter.
was it?
Yeah.
What's his name, sent me that. How come
James
he
Stewart
will?
Love?
James Stewart sent me that, copy of that will.
She was a sister to my great-great-granddad.
Oh,
And she had a brother that lived up here, was a doctor, George Washington Clement.
yeah. Well, you got the history of the Clements?
I have a lot of it.
I've got some. You see, she married a Clement.
Yeah. I have a lot of it. The Rapey would have been a first cousin to my great-granddad.
Which Rapey? Old man Rapey?
Big Rapey, yeah.
The old man,
Mm-hmm.
you can't remember when they lived out there at the crossroads.
Oh, I don't remember, no.
You can't do
No.
that, no.
I've heard of them a lot. I've heard Aunt Paulina all my life, but I don't.
Well, now that, Rafe and John Wellman get along good together. John Wellman lived right across the road, you know. Oscar Culler and his brother married Oscar Wellman. They lived
That was
out
on
there.
the Smith side.
Yeah, on the Smith
That was
side.
on the Smith side.
Rafe Clement, the old man, married a Smith.
She married Ann Smith.
And John Wellman married a Smith. His sister.
Yeah,
They got in a fuss, and the old man Ray told Aggie, he went in the store and he threatened to hit him. He says, you won't hit me, so she hit him in the head.
Anthony could have told us about that this morning, but we didn't have time. He tells a story about him getting into it too.
All the time.
You mentioned Meadowfield a while ago,
Yeah.
Terry Sue. Do you remember anything about the train being at Meadowfield?
No, but I've got if you'll move, I'll show you some
Okay.
more books.
Get away, kitty. So that,
No.
sit here. I don't want to get none of these pictures. She's got the books now. Okay.
Probably knows where they are too.
Yeah. Now, Carrie Sue, now was it your grandmother or your great-grandmother would have known Jeb Stewart? Didn't you?
My great-grandmother.
Great-grandmother knew Jeb
Yeah.
Stewart.
I hears about the, no, that's a big
Petticoats. Petticoats lived right next door to
Well,
him.
you know up here where when they changed the road numbers, the names of the roads, 911, and there's a place up here on Willis Gap, and this lady from Winston, you might have seen it in the paper, and she wanted the name changed to Ahart Ridge Road.
Yeah, yeah.
And it said years ago that there was a lady lived up there, Granny Scott, and this Ahart man, somebody had told Granny Scott if she'd drink out of a silver cup for 9 days, she could turn into a witch or anything she wanted to. So one day, Ahart man was out hunting, and he thought a deer, and he shot it, but it was Granny Scott.
Oh,
But it
God.
didn't kill her. And so she had taught his 5-year-old son how to do that. So he went out one day, thought it was a deer, and it was his 5-year-old son. And he shot him, his son, and killed him. Said shot him with a silver bullet, and up there next to Tate Bowman's, they said there was a barn with a log in it, had that silver bullet in it. And it said he was buried on Peter Bondurant farm. the little boy was. And Mama said Peter Bondurant was her grandpa and said she never heard that tale.
Yeah.
Said she'd probably heard it because they pass these tales on down, you know.
I used to go up and stay and ramble over them hills, but I never heard
But they
that
changed the
no
road to have A Hart Ridge Road.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that paper.
Uh-huh.